Hi, welcome to 2020 Tasty Treats with GourmetQuilter. We're doing some foundation piece blocks for this part of our Tasty Treats. So we've got 20 blocks to make. These are the 20 blocks we're making. And we've already made some. So we've made 6 already, and we're going to be making block 7 this time, which is going to be this very delicious looking coffee mug that I've got the pattern for here. So if you've already registered with GourmetQuilter, you'll have a pattern like that you can print out for the foundations. And so my pieces are not complete. These are most of the segments. There's 2 more small segments to go in there. I thought I'd make those because they're quite little this time. So what we're doing is cutting apart our segments into just roughly, still leaving a little bit of a margin on the outside so that we can trim them down when the fabrics are on them. So once I've got my pattern pieces cut out, we've got these little pieces to deal with. This is part of the handle. This is going to be the little turnaround on the top and the bottom of the handle. So just little, but we can do it. So we're going to start off, I'll start with the smallest one, but they're both very similar. So our piece 2, so we've got a C1, C2 and C3 on here, and this one is in E, and they're the same except that there's a longer piece here. But our piece 2 on both of those is the red. So I can start off by positioning piece 1 behind, which is going to be a background, and then I can make sure that where I put my red one on, it's going to flip over and cover. Remember, we're going larger than we think because we've got to cover all the seam allowance and things as well. So I can go ahead and do that. If you're not sure whether it's going to fit, we're just going to be folding along the line that we're going to be sewing, so that little diagonal line there. And you can fold the piece of fabric that's behind as well and position that on there. Make sure this bit that's folded back is the bit that we're actually trying to cover, not the piece behind. So make sure that all fits on your piece of fabric within your seam stitching area, and it's all looking pretty good there. So I think I can go ahead and stitch that line, which is longer than you think it's going to be because it needs to come out to the seams. So I'm just going to go, oh, so I've started too far out on that one. Won't matter. I didn't need the top section because that's part of the other piece, but that's fine. We can just pull that paper away from that part that's up there if we need to. So I can go ahead now and just trim that seam because it's this piece here that we're wanting to sit behind there. So we've got enough fabric there for that. I'm going to just trim that off and press it. So that we know exactly where we are. And then we need this piece 3 up above here, so that's going to be a slightly, just maybe but slightly longer. You want it slightly longer than where your dotted lines are, but other than that it's just going to be a smallish piece of fabric so that you can trim it down afterwards. And we're just going to stitch through that line there because we know that that's going to cover. And I'm just going to, this is where I stitched a bit far, I'm just going to pull that away from the stitching so that I can fold that back and trim that seam. And then I can fold that piece up and press it. And then I can just trim that whole very small segment. But it's because we want the little details like the apparently curved handle of the cup, and these little tiny bits allow us to achieve all that, which is kind of nice because you get such a nice finish at the end of these blocks. So a very tiny little segment, but it'll be joined to another segment, so it won't be that tiny when that happens. So that's the segment that's going to go up here, and by the time it's stitched in it ends up as a narrow piece across the top there for the handle. So I'll go ahead, the other one is really just the same. I'll go ahead and do that and then we'll assemble the block. So I've gone ahead, I've got my little pieces ready, I've got all my segments together now so that I can start joining them up. So another thought, when we, in the last block, we looked at segments that don't have any stitching, so we've used a little bit of a lightweight glue to hold them. Also that can apply when you've got a bigger piece that's sort of flapping a little bit. You may also want to have that just a little dab of glue to hold that in place so that everything stays together while you join everything up. Sometimes pieces just want to sort of lift a little bit from the paper, and it's much easier if they don't keep moving themselves around. So what we need to do now is work out how we're going to join this together. So we're going to join the handle together first, and when we've done that we'll find that it fits our mug. So I'm just going to join these ones on here. Make sure that you've got everything round the right way, then everything will fit. And we know how to do all this. This is kind of straightforward sewing. 1/4 of an inch seam, we're sewing on the line, not near the line, on the line. And I'll put the other piece on as well. So quite little, but it grows when we join them all up. Remember, I'm using a slightly smaller stitch, got a regular needle, regular thread. So I think we can probably press these ones open, and remember where we're going to join that onto the cup, we want to pull away these extra bits of paper that are in our seams there, because it just makes unnecessary bulk and it makes it much harder to get the paper out if we've left those little bits in on any seams that we're stitching over like that. I'll just get rid of those because they're not necessary. I'm going to press these seams open, and then we're going to put our handle on our cup. The other patches I've gone ahead and done them because it's really doing the same thing again. I just thought these little bits are quite tiny. It's quite good to see them being put together. So that now fits amazingly, fits our cup. So I'm going to stitch that on so that we can see the cup, and then all we have to do is put the top and the lower segment on, and we have a cup and saucer. Let's not forget the saucer. So as you can see, it's a fairly precise method of sewing, but what it gives you is some very nice results. I think it's a great way of doing some of these more detailed pictorial type of patchwork, if that's what we want to do. It doesn't have to be pictorial. You might have some amazing design with some all sorts of different angles in it that you want to achieve, or this would be one way of achieving something like that. So I'm just going to press that seam. It could go one way or it can go open. I'm going to press it open because that's what I like to do on these, but it wouldn't matter either way. So there's the cup is there. We need to attach it to its saucer, and the same thing applies where we've done a seam that we're covering over. Just pull out any bits of paper, particularly where you're going to be stitching over them on those seam allowances, so that it's not in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch those together, and I will show you the block when it's all finished. So there's my coffee cup and saucer all done. I rather like that cup. I think I'd quite like a cup like that with coffee in it, of course. So we've moved through that one fairly fast because most of this piecing was straightforward that we've done before, straight lines with some corners and things, but just those tiny bits that we've done, and we can just see how effective that is when we take the trouble to piece it in like that. So I'm going to put this up here with our other blocks, and I think that we're doing pretty well with all this. We've now done 7 blocks, so we've got 20 to do all together, and so we'll see you again for Tasty Treats Foundation Piece Blocks, block number 8 next time. Thank you.